There's no better way to program your subconscious mind than listening to positive statements over and over. And there's no better way to do that than in a semi-meditative alpha brainwave state. I've created 3 prosperity meditations on hightimelinebooks.com to help you do just that. And for a limited time, you can get all 3 for the price of 2. So take your life to a higher vibe. Check them all out at hightimelinebooks.com. Welcome in to the Tuesday edition of the Fun Astrology Podcast for December 3rd. Thomas Miller, thanks so much for joining us. I just stumbled across something kind of interesting that I do this little bit every week for a radio station. And if you noticed in the news that Elton John is losing his eyesight, he announced this weekend due to an eye infection. Well, I looked at his chart, and this is amazing. So in medical astrology, the luminaries, the sun and the moon, are typically the eyes. And in Vedic astrology, the south node of the moon, which they call Ketu, rules the eyes. Do you know that Ketu, the south node, is directly opposite Elton John's natal sun of his eyes? And on top of that, Mercury rules infections, and it went retrograde last week, and it is directly opposite Elton John's natal Uranus of sudden surprises. And if you want to throw another couple of logs on the fire, transiting Jupiter in retrograde just crossed over Elton's Uranus, amplifying things. See, this is where Jupiter is not always best, right? He lost his eyesight, Jupiter. And Pluto is at 0 degrees Aquarius, applying in a square to his natal sun of his eyes. And transiting Pluto is in Elton John's 6th house, that's health, and his sun is in the 8th, transformation. Boy, I saw that and I was like, you cannot make this stuff up. All right, let's take a look at today. We could do that very quickly. There is nothing of any kind of exact aspect in the sky today, but there's a lot applying, a lot that we are feeling. The closest, biggest one is tomorrow. That's the sun is squaring Saturn. The sun in the middle of Sagittarius and Saturn in the middle of Pisces. Now, that's interesting because those are 2 spiritual signs. So from the way that we interpret things typically around here for transits of how that might affect our life this week kind of thing, you'd have to look in your own chart to see where those positions are in your natal chart. But as far as at least what we all might get a whiff of, because of the 2 signs involved with the sun in Sag and the Pisces Saturn, that we might have some kind of breakthrough spiritually. But we're going to have to give something up, or we're going to have to change something, or we're going to have to address something, or whatever that may be. But there's, as we mentioned yesterday at the end there, it was like there is a lot of supporting energy, at least in the rest of the chart. So this is not all bad. This is favorable. Face the challenge, in other words. But from a collective standpoint, this could also be some real challenges as far as a project delayed. It could be a relationship challenge. In the natural zodiacal order, Saturn is in the 12th house. Something could come to an end. There could be delays. But if there are such things, frame them up from a spiritual perspective. Put your high timeline glasses on and look at it from that perspective. That aspect is at 11:18 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. What else today? Well, we almost kind of mentioned one. It's an earlier aspect. It happens at 5:15 Eastern. Mercury in retrograde is across from Jupiter. We talked about that relative to Elton John's chart. And remember, with Mercury already retrograde, Jupiter could magnify some of those retrograde activities in this basically all week. That's a big aspect. Another one affecting us today is Venus is in a positive aspect to Neptune tomorrow at 1:50 p.m. Eastern. Venus is in the later degrees of Capricorn, Neptune in the later degrees of Pisces in retrograde. And if we get past the shadow side of Neptune being the illusion and the delusion and the fog and the lies and deceptions, if we get past all of that and look at this as a positive aspect, it is a sextile. And we have the moon very close to Venus as well. So that double amplifies this as far as a positive thing in my book. So again, with your high timeline glasses on, look over at the spiritual side of things, and you have the moon, Venus, even to some degree that sun, Saturn, because we said that could be on our side. That's extra amplified spiritual connection. Because remember, the 12th house, even though it can be what the 12th house is known for, the challenges, it can also be incredibly positive. Think the high side of Neptune and Pisces. The moon is intuition as well. It's right there in this whole picture. So is Neptune, so is the 12th house. So our perceptions should be, if we tune in on the right side, available and clear. To me, this is one of those times that we have to be intentional. We have to get the other stuff out of the way. But once we clear ourselves, get centered, get focused, and I don't need to mention this, but I should. This is where it's days like this of why I don't drink alcohol. You know, it's a lingering effect. So happy Thanksgiving, yeah, and now, whoops, we've got a very spiritual aspect in the sky that could be clouded. I'm not saying it is, I'm saying it could be, and that's just why I choose to stay in the clear. That's my preference, choice I made, and I also have a heart that appreciates it. All right, two other quick things here. We have a mystic rectangle in the chart, and one side of it is this same aspect that we just talked about, the moon and Venus, and really you could throw Pluto into that. The magical 0 degrees Aquarius focal point, all in a sextile to Neptune, and we could also bring the North Node into that as well. So, I mean, this is a big one. This is big. Mars is also in this mystic rectangle, so it's added power, especially before Friday, because Mars is so slow right now that it's getting ready to station retrograde. And then also tomorrow, the moon enters Aquarius, and it crosses over Venus. That's the last aspect before it goes void, of course. So there's that positive. That's why Kristin's calendar is green for tomorrow, funastrology.com/moon. So we have the moon on our side all day. Wow, that's a lot, but I just wanted to mention that. Now what are we going to do tomorrow? Talked about everything. Oh, there's more. There is more. Have a great day. I love you, and I'll see you back in the morning.